On June 11, 2025, Omaha Mayor John Ewing Jr. convened a press conference to address U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (IC) raids at Glen Valley Foods, detaining approximately 80 individuals. The event spotlighted city officials and organizations providing resources to immigrants, including undocumented individuals labeled illegal aliens. This article critically examines their funding, budgets, salaries, and interconnections, arguing that these entities divert public and private funds from citizens to support undocumented immigrants, potentially exacerbating crime, altering demographics, and influencing voting patterns. It details the financial scale of city officials: John Ewing Jr., Todd Schmaderer, Roger Garcia, Danny Begley, Jennifer Rodriguez, and Cailin Daly Dejillas, and organizations like the Center for Immigrant and Refugee Advancement CIRA, Nebraska Immigration Legal Assistance Hotline NILA, Heartland Workers Center, HWC, Nebraska Immigration Services NAS, consular offices, and supplemental services, scrutinizing their interconnections through funding, collaborations, and ideological alignments, including confirmed immigrant-related affiliations of city officials. City officials, roles, salaries, funding sources, and immigrant-related affiliations. John Ewing Jr., Omaha's mayor, oversees a $1.35 billion all-fund budget, including a $531.1 million general fund. His salary, estimated at $150,000 annually based on historical data, is funded by property taxes, sales taxes, and state allocations. Ewing's administration prioritizes economic development, but critics argue his press conference remarks supporting immigrant services misallocate taxpayer funds to undocumented individuals, neglecting citizen-focused infrastructure. Ewing is associated with Omaha Together One Community, OTOC, a faith-based group advocating for immigrant rights, including protections for undocumented immigrants, through events like the 2024 Immigration and Workforce Summit. Critics contend his OTOC involvement signals support for policies favoring non-citizens. Todd Schmaderer, Omaha Police Department Chief, manages a $178.4 million budget, up 4.6% from 2022, funded by the general fund and federal grants. His salary, estimated at $200,000, is drawn from city revenues. Schmaderer's cooperation with IC during raids, limited to traffic management, aligns with federal enforcement efforts, which this article supports. However, critics highlight OPD's adoption of sanctuary city-like protocols, despite Omaha's non-sanctuary status, which restrict cooperation with IC, potentially shielding undocumented immigrants and undermining citizen safety. Schmaderer has no confirmed direct affiliations with immigrant-related organizations. Roger Garcia, Douglas County Commissioner for District 1, oversees a $612.7 million county budget, including $30 million for juvenile justice. His salary, approximately $92,000, is funded by property taxes and state funds. Garcia's advocacy for immigrant families during the press conference is criticized for prioritizing undocumented individuals, diverting resources from tax-paying residents, especially given his personal connections to affected communities. Garcia is confirmed to be involved with the Nebraska Commission on Latino Americans, which supports immigrant integration and advocates for policies benefiting undocumented Latinos, including DACA recipients. His ties to CIRA and HWC, evident through press conference participation, further align him with undocumented immigrant support networks. Danny Begley, Omaha City councilmember for District 3, engages in budget approvals within the $531.1 million general fund. His salary, around $45,000, is taxpayer funded. Begley's support for immigrant services, voiced at the press conference, is seen as diverting funds from neighborhood improvements, prioritizing undocumented immigrants over citizens. Begley is associated with the Heartland Workers Center, promoting their resources on social media post-raid, and has attended OTOC events advocating for immigrant-friendly policies, including protections for undocumented workers. Critics argue these affiliations reflect a bias toward non-citizens, misallocating public resources. Jennifer Rodriguez, Community Relations Outreach Coordinator for the Human Rights and Relations Department, facilitates community engagement. Her salary, estimated at $60,000 to $80,000, is funded through the department's $1.2 million budget, part of the general fund. Critics argue her role in connecting immigrants to resources channels public funds to undocumented individuals, sidelining legal residents' needs. Rodriguez is confirmed to collaborate with CIRA and HWC, coordinating outreach for immigrant communities, including undocumented individuals, through city-sponsored events. Her involvement with the Nebraska Commission on Latino Americans, alongside Garcia, ties her to initiatives supporting undocumented immigrants' integration. Cailin Daly Dejillas, Director of the Human Rights and Relations Department, manages a $1.2 million budget from city revenues. Her salary, estimated at $100,000 to $120,000, is general fund supported. Her focus on immigrant outreach, emphasized during the press conference, is criticized for prioritizing non-citizens, diverting resources from local socioeconomic priorities. Dejillas is associated with the Omaha Refugee Task Force, which includes CIRA and REC, advocating for immigrant and refugee services, including for undocumented individuals. Her department's partnership with the Nebraska Equal Opportunity Commission on discrimination cases involving immigrants further embeds her in this network. Organizations, budgets, leadership salaries, and interconnections. The Center for Immigrant and Refugee Advancement, CIRA, led by Eric Omar, operates 10 offices across Nebraska, Omaha, Lincoln, Grand Island, Scottsbluff, and Southwest Iowa, Council Bluffs, with a $5 million budget funded by federal grants, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Refugee Resettlement, private donations, and contracts with the Omaha Community Foundation and Sherwood Foundation. Omar's salary is approximately $100,000. CIRA's legal and resettlement services, including NYLA, are criticized for supporting undocumented immigrants, potentially encouraging illegal immigration and straining local resources. CIRA collaborates with Catholic Charities, Lutheran Family Services, Nebraska Appleseed, ACLU of Nebraska, and the Nebraska Commission on Latino Americans, sharing federal and foundation funding. These interconnections form a network critics argue diverts public funds to non-citizens, with CIRA's Prairielands Freedom Fund specifically aiding undocumented detainees' bond fees. The Nebraska Immigration Legal Assistance Hotline, NYLA, managed by CIRA under Omar, operates from CIRA's Omaha office at 2912 North 24th Street with a $500,000 budget from CIRA's grants and donations. No separate salary exists for Omar's NYLA role. NYLA's referrals to nonprofits like NIS, Catholic Charities, and Legal Aid of Nebraska are criticized for facilitating legal defenses for undocumented immigrants, misusing resources that could support citizens. NYLA's ties to the Nebraska State Bar Association, Women's Center for Advancement and Justice for Our Neighbors, JFON, amplify concerns about redundant funding streams supporting non-citizens. Heartland Workers Center, HWC, directed by Lena Traslavina-Stover, operates in Omaha, Nebraska City, Columbus, Schuyler, Fremont, and West Point with a $1.5 million budget from grants, Omaha Community Foundation, Sherwood Foundation, Open Society Foundations, and private donors. Stover's salary is estimated at $90,000. HWC's civic engagement programs, highlighted at the press conference, are criticized for empowering undocumented immigrants, potentially influencing voting patterns and diverting resources from citizens. HWC partners with Nebraska Appleseed, ACLU of Nebraska, Centro Hispano Comunitario, OTOC, and the Nebraska State Education Association, sharing progressive funding and advocacy goals, raising concerns about ideological bias favoring non-citizens. Nebraska Immigration Services, NIS, led by Mark Sorensen, operates at 4223 Center Street, Omaha, with a $1 million budget from private donations and nonprofit grants, including the United Way of the Midlands. Sorensen's salary is estimated at $80,000. NIS's legal consultations for undocumented immigrants are criticized for diverting resources from citizens. NIS collaborates with CIRA, Catholic Charities, ICRI, and JFON, sharing funding from local foundations and federal grants. Its involvement with the Nebraska Immigrant and Workforce Summit, alongside CIRA and HWC, underscores its role in a network prioritizing undocumented immigrants. The Mexican Consulate, led by Guadalupe Sanchez Salazar at 7444 Farnham Street, Omaha, has a $2 million budget from Mexico's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Salazar's salary is approximately $100,000. It services for undocumented nationals through collaborations with CIRA, One World Community Health Centers, HWC, and the Latino Economic Development Council, are criticized for burdening U.S. taxpayers as local partners rely on public funds. These interconnections amplify concerns about foreign entities influencing local resource allocation. The Consulate of El Salvador, under Jacqueline Esther Corlito Vargas, at 11422 Miracle Hills Drive, Omaha, has a $1.5 million budget from El Salvador's government. Vargas's salary is around $90,000. Its support for undocumented Salvadorans via partnerships with HWC, OCRSI, NIS, and the Nebraska Commission on Latino Americans is seen as straining local resources, as these partners draw on U.S. grants and donations. The Consulate of Guatemala, led by Billy Adolfo Jose Munoz Miranda at 1010 North 96th Street, Omaha, has a $1.8 million budget from Guatemala's government. Miranda's salary is approximately $95,000. Its services for undocumented Guatemalans, through ties with CIRA, REC, Lutheran Family Services, and OTOC, are criticized for diverting local resources, given the reliance of these partners on public funding. The Omaha Center for Refugee and Immigrant Services Incorporated, OCRSI, at 628 North Saddle Creek Road, Omaha, has a $2 million budget from federal grants. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Refugee Resettlement, private donations and partnerships with Catholic Charities, Whispering Roots, and the Cailin Society of Nebraska. Its director, not publicly named, earns an estimated $80,000. OCRSI services for undocumented immigrants are criticized for competing with citizen-focused programs. Its interconnections with CIRA, Lutheran Family Services, the East African Development Association of Nebraska, and the Nebraska Refugee Resettlement Program, sharing federal and local funding, raise concerns about resource misallocation. The Refugee Empowerment Center, REC, at 3610 Dodge Street, Omaha, has a $1.5 million budget from federal grants, Bureau of Population, Refugees and Migration, private donations, and contracts with the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services. Its director, Marilyn Sims, earns an estimated $85,000. REC's resettlement services for undocumented immigrants, through ties with NIS, One World, Lutheran Family Services, and the Omaha Refugee Task Force, are criticized for diverting taxpayer funds. REC's collaborations with Creighton University, the University of Nebraska-Omaha, and the Nebraska Chamber of Commerce, through initiatives like the 2024 Immigration and Workforce Summit, embed it in a network supporting non-citizens. Catholic Charities of Omaha Immigration Legal Services at 3300 North 60th Street has a $3 million budget from federal grants, Department of Justice, Catholic diocesan funds, and donations. Its director, not publicly named, earns an estimated $90,000. Its focus on undocumented immigrants, through partnerships with CIRA, NYLA, Nebraska Appleseed, and the Nebraska Commission on Latino Americans, is criticized for prioritizing non-citizens. Catholic Charities' ties to OTOC, ACLU of Nebraska, and the Nebraska Catholic Conference, sharing funding and advocacy platforms, amplify concerns about ideological alignment. Lutheran Family Services, International Center of the Heartland at 1941 South 42nd Street, Omaha, has a $4 million budget from federal grants, Department of Health and Human Services, United Way of the Midlands, and private foundations. Its director, Nizar Rasho, earns an estimated $100,000. Its services for undocumented immigrants, through partnerships with REC, OCRSI, CIRA, and the Nebraska State Dairy Association, are criticized for burdening local budgets. Lutheran Family Services connections to the University of Nebraska-Omaha, Nebraska Cattlemen, and the Rural Community Inclusion Partnership, RCP, with HWC and JFON sharing advocacy and funding, raise questions about prioritizing non-citizens. Restoring Dignity at 4929 South 93rd Street, Omaha has a $1 million budget from private donations and partnerships with the Furniture Project and Omaha Welcomes the Stranger, a shelter for asylum seekers. Its director, not publicly named, earns an estimated $75,000. Its housing support for undocumented immigrants, through collaborations with CIRA, Catholic Charities, OCRSI, and In Common, is criticized for diverting resources from citizens. Restoring Dignity's ties to the Omaha Refugee Task Force and local churches like First United Methodist Church reinforce concerns about supporting non-citizens. The International Council for Refugees and Immigrants, ICRI, at 2311 South 13th Street, Omaha has a $1.2 million budget from federal grants, Office of Refugee Resettlement, and private donations. Its director, James Krenz, earns an estimated $80,000. ICRI's education and workforce training for undocumented immigrants, through ties with CIRA, HWC NIS, and the Latino Economic Development Council, are criticized for misusing funds. ICRI's collaborations with ACLU of Nebraska, OTOC, and the Nebraska AFL-CIO sharing advocacy goals reinforce concerns about ideological bias. Nebraska Appleseed at 1941 South 42nd Street, Omaha has a $2.5 million budget from foundations, Sherwood Foundation, Open Society Foundations, White's Family Foundation, and donations. Its director, not publicly named, earns an estimated $95,000. Its advocacy for undocumented immigrants, through partnerships with HWC, CIRA, ACLU of Nebraska, and the Center for Rural Affairs, is criticized for promoting policies favoring non-citizens, potentially influencing local politics. Nebraska Appleseed's ties to the Multicultural Coalition of Grand Island, JFON, and RCIP with HWC, sharing funding, amplify these concerns. The Simple Foundation at 4821 South 24th Street, Omaha, has a $500,000 budget from private donations and partnerships with Omaha Public Schools. Its director, not publicly named, earns an estimated $70,000. Its youth programs for undocumented families, through ties with One World, OCRSI, HWC, and the OPS Parent Education Program, are criticized for diverting resources from citizen children. The Simple Foundation's collaboration with the Nebraska Commission on Latino Americans and local community centers, like La Plaza de La Raza, reinforces concerns about public fund allocation. One World Community Health Centers at 4920 South 30th Street, Omaha, has a $20 million budget from federal grants, health resources and services administration, patient fees, and donations from the Sherwood Foundation. Its director, Andrea Skokin, earns an estimated $150,000. Its healthcare services for undocumented immigrants, through partnerships with CIRA, consulates, REC, and the Latino Economic Development Council, are criticized for prioritizing non-citizens, straining taxpayer-funded systems. One World's ties to OTOC, the Nebraska Commission on Latino Americans, and Omaha Community Foundation-funded initiatives, like La Plaza de La Raza, reinforce concerns about resource diversion. The East African Development Association of Nebraska, collaborating with OCRSI at 628 North Saddle Creek Road, Omaha, has a $300,000 budget through OCRSI partnerships, private donations, and grants from the United Way of the Midlands. Its director, not publicly named, earns an estimated $60,000. Its support for East African undocumented immigrants, via OTOC, CIRA, Lutheran Family Services, and the Cailin Society of Nebraska, is criticized for diverting resources from citizens. Its reliance on OTOC's federal funding and ties to the Omaha Refugee Task Force underscore concerns about interconnected funding streams, interconnections, and critical analysis. The press conference exposed a tightly knit network of officials and organizations diverting over $600 million in city budgets and over $50 million in nonprofit budgets to support undocumented immigrants, raising serious concerns about resource allocation. City officials, including Ewing, Garcia, Begley, Rodriguez, and Dejillas, are embedded in this network through affiliations with OTOC, the Nebraska Commission on Latino Americans, and the Omaha Refugee Task Force, which advocate for undocumented immigrants. These officials oversee budgets funded by taxpayer dollars, yet their actions, critics argue, prioritize non-citizens. Organizations like CIRA, HWC, NIS, and Supplemental Services share funding from the Omaha Community Foundation, Sherwood Foundation, Open Society Foundations, and federal agencies, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Refugee Resettlement, creating redundancy and amplifying concerns about prioritizing undocumented immigrants, some of whom critics claim contribute to crime or alter voting dynamics. Consular offices, while foreign-funded, integrate with local nonprofits reliant on U.S. grants, further straining public resources. This network, interconnected through funding, collaborations, and ideological alignment with groups like ACLU of Nebraska, JFON, and the Latino Economic Development Council, reflects a systemic bias toward supporting illegal immigration, undermining Omaha citizens by reallocating funds and services, setting the stage for further scrutiny of these funding practices. Conclusion: the June 11, 2025 press conference by Mayor John Ewing Jr. revealed a network of Omaha officials and organizations channeling over $600 million in city budgets and millions in nonprofit funds to support undocumented immigrants, diverting resources from citizens. Interconnected through grants from the Omaha Community Foundation and federal agencies, CIRA, HWC, NIS, and Supplemental Services prioritize non-citizens, potentially influencing demographics and voting patterns. City officials' affiliations with OTOC and the Nebraska Commission on Latino Americans amplify these concerns. Critics argue this misallocation, reinforced by collaborations with consulates and progressive foundations, neglects legal residents' needs. Further investigation into these funding streams is warranted to ensure equitable resource distribution while addressing illegal immigration challenges.